I want to talk about Sam Harris for a minute because I like
Mm,
Sam Harris a lot.
me too. Me
Actually,
too.
I'm on day 20 of his waking up meditation course,
Hmm.
which has been just exquisite, lovely.
Wow.
The funny thing is that the more I do his meditation app, the more choices I feel I have every day, which
He
which
doesn't
is
believe in
ironic,
choices, though, does he?
right? Because he's a bit of a determinist,
He is.
and he almost makes a phenomenological backwards argument, which is to say, yeah, we experience that we have choices, but really on this objective level over here, they don't exist. And I can't ever quite figure out exactly what he's trying to get at because, first of all, what is the value in this objective layer of reality that you never experience? Like I understand that as a philosopher, there's an interest in just talking about what reality is. I get that, and at the same time, I struggle with the idea that that's somehow disconnected from our day-to-day lives. And to me, any philosophy that doesn't incorporate phenomenology is somewhat incomplete. So that's one. Two is he does use these experiments as an argument where I don't know exactly how they're set up, but essentially, they'll have someone choose to raise one of their left or their right hand, and they'll prove somehow neurologically that the decision had already been made by the body before they were consciously aware. So that, in essence, what that's saying is that conscious choice is actually a byproduct post hoc rationalization that never actually happened. It never actually occurred. What I'm trying to reconcile with Sam, because I like him so much, is, and maybe this isn't something that can be reconciled, is how do you be a proponent of meditation and deep awareness and consciousness and living a better life, and then at the same time peddle determinism? It
Well,
feels incompatible to me.
it isn't, unfortunately. I think it's completely wrong. But I one of them, and a person who was very influential to me 30 years ago was Ramesh Balsekar, who was a student of Sri Nisargadatta Maharaj, the Advaitic teachers in India. And Ramesh Balsekar's whole thing was, look, it's all one. You don't exist as an individual. You have no free will. There's no one to have any free will. It's all just happening. And it's all just the causality of things playing itself out. And you have the illusion of being a self, and you have the illusion of having some will. And the way to wake up is to realize there's no doer. And that was the key phrase, which you'll see from lots of teachers like that. Now, I think the reason that that kind of non-duality and science get on so well is they're both massively reductionist. So the message over here is there is only it's only one. Whereas I'm saying, it's really not, is it? Look, it's the one in relationship to itself in myriad ways. And the relationship is what exists. That's what exists. That's what matters. Right. That's what's evolving. And science the same. Science, for the reasons we've discussed in some length, it reduces it's just until it disappears. So then you're left with, okay, so like A.N. Whitehead says, if you've got a theory which sets out to explain what life is, and you end up with a diminished sense of what life is, you need to be, question that. And that's what science has done. Now, but I think the reason I think it's wrong is twofold. There's lots of the experiments, and obviously I can't address individual ones, but fundamentally what they show is that consciousness is reflective, which is what it is. So that, I'm not consciously deciding how to move my mouth or even what I'm going to say. It's happening too fast. Right. If I had to stop and think about it, I'd be quiet, I'd reflect, and then I'd say something. But that would be very, very unproductive. And mostly I can just do it. Right. And it's unconscious but I'm not just the conscious bit of me. I'm all of me, including most of it is unconscious. And then my consciousness is just the attention. It's a focused form of subjectivity, which goes, sure, you really matter. So at the moment it's focused on you. It's not really focused on what I'm going to say, because I don't know I'm becoming conscious of that as it happens. But if I said something stupid, I might stop and reflect on it. Right. So what these things measure is the fact that most of it's happening unconsciously, which it clearly is. And hallelujah for that. That's why where we function at our best. It's like the idea in Thinking Fast, Thinking Slow, the book, that the thinking fast just happens when we act. And then the thinking slow is when we become conscious of it. And it's hard work. It slows us down. It's why when you're playing an instrument, you don't want to stop thinking about it. You want to think about it while you practice and then just do it. or playing a sport, for instance.
Right. But at a certain point, there was a choice there was a way in which
Yes.
we consciously programmed our unconscious or
Okay.
automatic.
So there's two elements here. One is what's happening in those experiments. Well, what's happening in those experiments is just simply measuring the fact that we respond unconsciously and then consciously notice it.
Right.
Because consciousness's job is to be reflective. That's what it
Right.
is. Then there becomes, well, what about choice generally? Is there an element within that? If I am all of myself, including my unconscious, is it still choosing? Even if it's unconscious, is it me choosing, or is it really billiard balls? And so for there to be, do we live in a deterministic universe is what we're saying. And what we've discovered is, no, we do not live in a deterministic. In fact, there's some, my friend Ian McGilchrist, who wrote,
He's wonderful.
Yeah, so he wrote the Master in His Emissary. In his
Right.
latest book, which I think might be out now, he gave me a copy before it came out, and he had this example, some research. I can't remember the people that did it, but they were working out, given the way that probability waves work on a quantum level, how many billiard balls could you actually predict where they were going to be, based on the fact that quantum randomness is happening on the lowest level. When you do hit the billiard ball, to what degree could you actually go, this will definitely, they will definitely end up here? 8 billiard balls. After 8 billiard balls, you can't say anymore.
Right.
Because the quantum effect is too great. So what that tells you is that at the bottom of the universe, there's something creative. At the lowest level, it's random.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Right.
That randomness is coming through all of the organizational aspects of the universe, including us. And then it's being harnessed by all these information systems for their own purposes. And we are harnessing that creativity, and we experience that as choice. So that it is, and the less, the more emergent it is, and the less passivity, the less rigid it becomes, because the habits of the universe are weaker. So on this level of the psyche, it's pretty free, and it's pretty creative. Like you said, it has to work on what's there. You can't think a thought you've never had. You can only take thoughts and put them in new orders, but you're choosing it.
Yeah, you said two words that I want to put together: creativity and choice. My mentor in psychology, Dr. Strachan, started Center for Creative Choice. And the idea was that you become aware of all these distinct drives inside of you, these drives towards certain ends. You could call them subpersonalities. That's what I prefer. And through that awareness, there's a soulful sense of choice that continues to emerge, and that these choices are creative. That it's not that there's one way to deal with life that's necessarily the right way or the wrong way. It's that when you assimilate all your options and your possible manifestations in life, and then you make them conscious, there's a real sense of directedness that occurs and intentionality. And I suppose the reason that the determinism argument seems untenable to me is because I might not be thinking through every aspect of my automaticity, but there are ways in which choice emerges for me on the most important levels in my life. And it's not going to be, whether or not I raise my left or right hand, or every word that comes out of my mouth in this moment. But when it comes to the overall thrust of my being in the world, there is a sense of personal responsibility and choice that feels so real. It is so important. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that I guess coming back to Sam Harris, and he's not here to defend himself, so it's not really fair. But I guess what I hear. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, the thing to remember about Sam is he's a determinist, so he has no choice about what he believes.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
He's just programmed to believe that crazy idea, and there's no way out for him.
Well, I suppose what I'm trying to say is that it doesn't seem to me to be giving the idea of choice its full due. It doesn't seem to.
I'm with you, Ryan. Choice is the cutting edge of this, and it's something which has been evolving, And once you have the imagination, what is that?
Right.
It's the ability to frame possibilities imaginatively. It could be this, it could be that.
Yeah.
And that's developed from a very useful tool, whether you're hunting or being hunted. So
Right.
It's gone that way, it's gone that. And that ability to reflect slows you down.
Yeah.
But it allows you to try out something before you do it and then choose the one you want to do.
Yeah.
So and then we have evolved that and evolved that and evolved that, and now we're choosing what we believe, and it's like structure upon structure. It is the creativity of the universe at its most emergent. It's the thing, and that sense we have that we matter as individuals, yes. And the reductionists that try to destroy our individuality, whether they're spiritual or physicalists, they're wrong.
Right.
The universe has developed as individuals, and what marks us out more than anything is our individual creative choices.
Yes.
That's it.
I love
That's
that.
what we need to choose more and more and more, so that we can reflect on all sorts. And what we're doing now is reflecting on ideas, and then you and I and anyone listening to this can choose which one they want to develop, or which one they go with for now, or which one resonates for them with their other ideas for now. And this is the leading edge of the universe evolving. This is not some epiphenomena.
Right.
This is it.
Yeah. That's thank you, Tim.
But from that determinism comes also then reductionism, which goes, well, if it's these simple laws just governing everything, that's what's real. This is all epiphenomena. Everything is an epiphenomena, just obeying those simple billiard ball rules.
Right.
So now all of this richness of life and feelings, and that's all actually billiard balls, obeying God's rules,
Right.
the laws.
Right.
So what comes with that is then reductionism, which leads to, well, it used to be materialism, which is, well, what's the simplest thing? Well, matter, the billiard balls. So that's what really exists. So now you've got the three woo-woo dogmas. Everything is fixed. There's no freedom. There's no creativity. It's just obeying rigid laws. We reduce it to the simplest thing, which is the laws and the things they organize. And what they organize is matter. Now, matter's dissolved in our hands. We now go, oh, hang on a second, it's not there. It's turned into quantum possibilities. That's all dissolved. And so people call it physicalism now, or other scientism, various other phrases. But fundamentally, those are the things. And they're all wrong. They're just wrong.
Right. I agree with you completely. When I work with clients, I often harp about the importance of choice. We talk a lot about choice. We all experience that we make choices.
Yeah.
All of us. And I think sometimes the determinist will straw man choice and we'll use the least important examples of the choices we make. Like, did we choose to pick up our right hand or our left hand when we were prompted in a specific study? I mean, that's such an arbitrary example of choice. I mean, what about the relationships we choose? What about the attitudinal positions that we pick up and we carry throughout our day? What about the choice to pursue a goal? There's so many choices that we make, and that's not to say that our will is absolutely unrestricted to the extent that we aren't impacted by our instincts. For example, we can't just totally transcend every bodily restriction through this idea of free will. But to me, what free will means is that I don't even like the word confines. Within the unique, delimited sphere of my being, I have a sense of autonomy and soulful directedness that I can implement with the complexity, not against it.
Yes. Look, there's two things really, which is why, like, the first thing is, one of the things that comes with reductionism is the idea that everything's happening from the bottom upwards. Right. But things don't just happen from the bottom upwards. Things happen from the top downwards. The flow of interaction is happening throughout. So things change by being in part of a greater context. And then, like right now, oxygen is in my body is just being oxygen. But my body is moving it about for its own purposes in the blood. And it's doing all of that for its own purposes. And the oxygen doesn't know nothing about it. It's just being oxygen. So the lower levels don't, it's not all the lower levels. There's a top-down influence as well. And the top-down influence here is of the psyche. So the psyche is a very emergent level, and I'm intending to convey these ideas to you. And then my mouth, I don't even know how it does it, makes these complex movements very quickly, and it throws air out. And the next thing you know, I've sent you symbolic messages, and you've read them, and we're able to share these immaterial things called ideas. And now you have a piece of information which you didn't have before. It exists. It has its own nature. You could pass it on to somebody else, but it's nowhere in the material world. For a while, it was represented as movements in the air, but now it's something in the psyche.
Right.
And the idea that all of it gets reduced is crazy.
Yes.
It's the opposite of this emergent vision, which is the one reality is constantly becoming richer.
Yeah.
And it's all real.
Oh, that's beautifully said.